Because all three of them call me back to back to back. That means that they're all sitting in the same room, or sitting, or they're sitting in offices right next to each other, and they're queuing each other to give me a call once the first person and the second person gets done with the phone call. So for me, that's odd, and that's a little bit annoying because, there's not really any time to process. But at the same time, I got that in my head that, these guys are literally sitting in the room talking about me, calling me, and then they're probably talking to each other about what they talked about right after they got off the phone. And to me, that's a little bit disrespectful. It's a little bit annoying. But Coach Yarno calls me up, and Coach Yarno gives me the spiel about, how he went to bat for me. He fought for me. He didn't want me to be released. He wanted them to keep me, this and that, to which in my head, I didn't buy one fucking word. I knew what time it was by the way you acted in that exit interview after I was being open and honest with you as a player, trying to look up to his coach and tell him, hey, coach, I'm ready for us to try to work together to take this to the next level. You took it personal. You got mad. You felt like I was critiquing you as a coach when I was critiquing the situation as a team. And this was, in my view and from my perspective at that time, this was the response, was that when it was time for you as a coach to tell them, no, we keep Uche, you said, yeah, let's get rid of him. And I knew he had that kind of potential as a coach, mainly because of what happened with another player earlier in the season, our left tackle, first round pick from my third season in the league, Eugene Monroe. Him and Eugene butt heads from the moment that he walked in the door. Him and Coach Yarno had shouting matches. Him and Coach Yarno argued almost daily. Coach Yarno didn't like the fact that Eugene wasn't one of those, fall in line guys. And he wanted to kind of break Eugene because Eugene was a first rounder. Eugene knew that he had value. Eugene knew that he was a talented player, and he wasn't going to sit there and just be berated, which an offensive line coach like George Yarno, that was one of his things, was to scream at players for no real apparent reason. But because of his resistance to that, Eugene got traded before the season even started. Or I think a couple games into the season, I'm sorry. Eugene got traded to Baltimore a couple games into the season. And I think a lot of that was solely from the push from George Yarno to make that happen. I don't think that the Jags necessarily had plans to get rid of Eugene, but Yarno, when they, at the end of the day, when they come to an offensive line coach and ask him, if offensive line coach goes to bat for his player, a lot of times that's enough. But in the situation like this, he let Eugene go. And I felt like it was probably a similar thing with me because he felt like he was crossed, and, that stuck with him. And in the time when there was an opportunity to look out for your veteran offensive lineman, your senior offensive lineman at this point, he decided not to. So after my conversation with him, needless to say, I think that, a lot of bitterness set in because of the way that I construed how he spoke. I could just feel that it was not, I felt like it just wasn't somebody speaking honestly to me. So, that was a long drive home. From Atlanta to Jacksonville, it was about a 5-hour drive, and of course, I had to call my wife and let her know that, hey, we're done in Jacksonville. And that was a hard thing to do because, the shock of it was so fresh. So, hey, I cried about it because I loved being in Jacksonville. I loved being a Jaguar. I felt like, being in that underdog role which I felt like I'd been in that underdog role my whole life. This was a place where I'd seen success. This was a place where, as a player and as a team, the Jaguars had shown flashes, and there was a lot to look forward to, in my opinion, with what everything that Shad Khan was trying to do, and with what everything that Gus Bradley was trying to do. I felt like there would be an opportunity for the Jaguars to be a contender in some way, shape, or form in the near future. Now, we all know how everything played out, but at that point, that's how I felt. And I felt like I'd given everything to Jacksonville. I felt like I'd given everything I could. I'd given my body, I'd given my time, I'd given my soul to the Jaguars, to doing everything that I could to be a part of the Jaguars building to be a better franchise. And I felt like, to a certain extent, I felt disrespected by the Jaguars. And when I say that meaning that, this was a new regime, head coach, GM. I was driving back to Jacksonville. So for me, it felt almost more ridiculous that these guys didn't even take the time to find out where's Uche at. Let's see if we can get him to come in and speak to us so we can do this face to face. He's a guy who's been here his entire career, a guy who was drafted here, a guy who had played as a starter here, who played 4 seasons straight without missing a game, a guy who's played through injury, a guy who's played through sickness, what have you. I've done it, and I've done it because that's the kind of player that I was. So for me, the part that stung me the most, that hurt me the most from this situation, was that these cats didn't have the simple respect for a veteran player, a guy who has been here his entire career, to cut me face to face, shake my hand, look me in the eyes, tell me that, it's time to move on. And I can respect that because you're showing me that, hey, we want you to come in here. We want to sit down with you and explain to you that we're moving on, but show you the respect of doing it to your face and not doing it over the phone like like cowards. I felt like they were cowards at the end of the day. That's what, the revelation was for me, is that instead of being men, they were cowards. And that left a very bad taste in my mouth walking out the door in Jacksonville. So dealing with that obviously was a process, because it's like going through the 5 stages of grief. And that's how I went through it. But it's a business. You got to understand that this is part of it. I'd watched guys come in and out of those doors in Jacksonville for 7 years. I was the last guy in a draft class of 13 players. I was the last one to leave Jacksonville. 13 players. So a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, then me, then another fifth, then a sixth, seventh. I don't know if I even did the math right there. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comment section. But I was the last one released. I was the last one. They never drafted a guard. They never drafted an interior lineman while I was in Jacksonville. I never competed against anybody to try and take my position, because I played my position as well as I could. Your time's coming sooner or later, and you always hope that you're ready for it. You always hope that you're prepared for it. But it's still a shock. It's still something that always, hits you hard, hits you deep to your core, because it's hard to be told that you're not wanted anymore. I mean, I think that's fair to say for anybody in any field that you work in. When you've worked in it in a long time and then somebody tells you you're not wanted anymore, that can cause some feelings to stir for sure. And for me, it definitely did hurt. It did hurt for a little bit, but I was able to move past it. And again, I was able to, still have love for the city of Jacksonville, love for the fans, and love for the franchise, and hope that the franchise is able to lift itself back up You know, back to the levels that we saw in like 2017, back to the levels that we saw in 2007. And we'll see how it goes. But, you know, for me, that was my experience with being cut. That was my first time being cut as a player in the NFL. That was after 7 years in Jacksonville. So let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments down below. Remember to hit that like button if you like this video. I would love to see some feedback about what you guys think about a player's perspective series. This is the first one, and I'm hoping to do many more. So please leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. I'm your observant lineman, Uche Nwaneri, and I will catch you all on the next video. Peace.